All right, hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to dive into a tool that, on the surface might look like it belongs purely in a math class, but it is in fact one of the absolute cornerstones of modern business strategy. And I'm talking about the matrix. Now, before we even start, I want you to just set aside any ideas you might have about complex abstract algebra. Instead, I want you to think of a matrix as a kind of Rosetta Stone for business data. It's a system that lets us take this overwhelming, often chaotic flood of information that businesses deal with every single day and translate it into a clear, structured story. A story that allows us, as leaders, to make smarter, faster, and much more confident decisions. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to start by confronting the beast that every single business faces, just pure data chaos. From there, we'll start to build our weapon to tame that beast, piece by piece, by really understanding the anatomy of a matrix. Then we'll explore some specialized versions, the right tool for the right job. We're also going to introduce the concept that is deceptively simple but incredibly powerful, the identity matrix. And finally, and this is probably the most important part, we're going to connect all these dots to show you why mastering this stuff isn't just about passing this course. It's about equipping you for real success in your future careers. Okay, let's get right into it. Every single business, I don't care if it's a local coffee shop or a massive global corporation, is absolutely drowning in data. We're talking sales figures, inventory levels, customer feedback, marketing campaign results, employee hours. The list is practically endless. The big challenge in business today isn't a lack of data, it's the overwhelming abundance of it. The real problem is figuring out how to cut through all that noise to find the signal. So let's put you in the driver's seat with a very, very common business problem. Imagine you're a product manager. It's the end of the quarter, and your boss comes over to your desk. She says, "Hey, I need a quick performance summary. I need to know how our 3 main products are doing across our 4 sales territories, North, East, South, and West." It sounds like a pretty straightforward request, right? But what you often get back from the analytics team looks something like this. It's just a raw data dump, a long, jumbled list of numbers. Now, just take a second and look at it. Can you, at a glance, tell me which region is your strongest or which product is lagging? It's really hard, isn't it? Your eyes have to jump all over the place. You're trying to mentally group things together. Trying to build a coherent strategy from this kind of mess is not just slow, it is a recipe for making very expensive mistakes. This right here, this is data chaos. So how do we fight this chaos? What's the solution? Well, we need a system. We need a structure that is specifically designed to handle this kind of multivariable information. And that structure, of course, is the matrix. This is our framework for imposing a logical, coherent order on what was, just a moment ago, complete numerical noise. Okay, so let's start with the official definition, which is actually beautifully simple. A matrix is just a rectangular grid of numbers, and it's organized into rows that run horizontally and columns that run vertically. And every single number inside that grid has a name. It's called an element. Now, don't let that simplicity fool you. This basic structure is precisely what gives the matrix its power. So let's apply this to our sales problem. The very first thing we have to do is define our axes. And this is a hugely important decision. We're going to decide that each row will represent a different product. So product A, B, and C. And each column will represent a different sales region, North, East, South, and West. See what we've done? Just by making that decision, we've created a logical framework, a clean, organized grid that's just waiting to hold our data. And now, here comes the magic. We take that jumbled list of numbers from before, and we place each one into its proper home inside our new grid. And just like that, look at the difference. It's night and day. Instantly, the story of our sales performance becomes crystal clear. You can just scan across the second row and see exactly how product B is doing in every single region. You can scan down the 4th column and get an immediate feel for your overall performance in the West. This is the real power of the matrix. It turns confusing data into actionable business intelligence. Now in business, just like in math, precision is everything. So we have a standard way of describing the size or the dimension of any matrix. We always state the number of rows first, followed by the number of columns. So our sales matrix here is a 3x4 matrix. And this isn't just some arbitrary rule, it's a universal language. It ensures that everyone is on the same page. If I ask you for the sales data for product A in the East, you know exactly where to look. The element at the intersection of row 1 and column 2. This precise address system is absolutely fundamental for everything else we're going to do with matrices. Of course, not all business data comes in a nice, neat, multi-row, multi-column package. And that's okay. Just like a good mechanic has a whole toolbox full of different wrenches and screwdrivers for different jobs, we have specialized types of matrices for different kinds of data. So let's take a look at a few of the most common ones you're going to run into. First up, we have the row matrix, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a matrix with just a single row. So what's it for? Well, a row matrix is perfect for neatly organizing different pieces of data, or categories, that all relate back to one single thing. Think of it like a horizontal snapshot. Here's a great example. Let's say a company's finance department wants to summarize its main costs for the first quarter. This 1x3 row matrix does that job perfectly. We have one single entity, the Q1 costs, and it's broken down across 3 different categories: materials, labor, and overhead. It's clean, it's concise, and it's a super easy-to-read financial summary. So the natural counterpart to the row matrix is, you guessed it, the column matrix. And this one has only one column. Its purpose is basically the inverse of the row matrix. It's used to represent one specific piece of data across many different items. It's like a vertical list. A classic business example you see all the time is just a simple price list. Here, the single category in our one column is price per unit. And then each row represents a different product in our inventory: product A, product B, and product C. This 3x1 column matrix is simply the most logical and efficient way to display that kind of information. Finally, let's talk about the square matrix. This is where the number of rows is exactly equal to the number of columns, so a 2x2, a 3x3, and so on. Now, this is where things start to get really powerful. Square matrices are absolutely essential when you start moving into more advanced business modeling, especially when you're analyzing the interactions between systems of the same size. Think about modeling something like the flow of money between 3 different departments, or trying to predict how customers might switch between your 3 main competitors. That's where square matrices shine. Okay, I want to introduce you to a very special, very important type of square matrix. And to really get what it does, I want you to think back to the most basic math you know. In regular multiplication, what's the one number you can multiply any other number by and it doesn't change its value? It's the number 1, right? Well, the identity matrix is the matrix world's version of the number 1. This quote really says it all. Just like the number 1 is what we call the multiplicative identity for regular numbers, the identity matrix, which we always write as a capital I, plays that exact same role in the world of matrices. It's a neutral element, and its existence is what allows us to perform all sorts of powerful algebraic moves that are essential for solving really complex business problems. And this is what one looks like. An identity matrix is always a square matrix. And its defining feature is what we call the main diagonal. That's the line of numbers that runs from the top left corner down to the bottom right. The identity matrix is defined by having the number 1 in every single spot along that main diagonal and zeros absolutely everywhere else. It's this unique, simple structure that gives it its special power. This slide draws the comparison perfectly. On the left, you've got the basic arithmetic you've known forever. Any number A times 1 is still A. 7 times 1 is 7. On the right, we have matrix algebra. Any matrix A multiplied by the correct identity matrix I gives you the original matrix A right back. So, why is that a big deal? Why is this so important? Well, this property is the key that unlocks our ability to solve massive systems of linear equations. And that is how modern businesses find the best solutions for incredibly complex problems. Everything from optimizing a global supply chain to allocating a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio. So we've covered a lot of ground today, a lot of definitions, a lot of structure. So now let's zoom out and really focus on the big picture. Why is this foundational knowledge not just an academic exercise, but a critical skill for you as a future business professional? Here are the big ideas I want you to walk away with. First, matrices are your number 1 tool for taking the chaos of raw data and turning it into the clarity of actionable intelligence. Second, those different types we talked about, row, column, square, they aren't just abstract ideas. They are specialized tools for specific jobs, and you need to know which one to use and when. Third, and this is so important, you must always remember that you are the one who gives the matrix its meaning. The structure you create is what defines what the data represents. And finally, these basic concepts, like the identity matrix, are the essential building blocks for the kind of powerful, advanced analysis that drives modern business strategy. And that brings me to the single most common and frankly most dangerous mistake that I see students make. A simple, careless error like mixing up what your rows and columns represent can have truly disastrous consequences in the real world. In our sales example, if you forget that rows are products and columns are regions, you might accidentally present a report analyzing the performance of the North product, which is completely meaningless.
Your team could then make major strategic decisions based on that garbage analysis. You could end up pouring millions in marketing dollars into the wrong region or making terrible inventory decisions, all because the initial structure of that matrix wasn't clearly defined and respected. Precision, right from the very beginning, is absolutely paramount. So we'll end with this thought. We've spent our time today learning how to build the container, how to meticulously organize our information so that it's clear, it's unambiguous, and it's ready for analysis. So the critical question that follows, and the topic of our next lecture, is this. Now that we have this beautifully structured data, what can we actually do with it? How do we start performing operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication on these matrices to do things like forecast future sales, optimize our resources, and ultimately gain a real competitive edge in the marketplace? That is where the true power of this amazing tool is finally unleashed.